And welcome, Hoosier fans, to another episode of Doing the Work, the first show on the Back Home Network covering IU women's basketball. This is our 144th episode, recorded on Thursday, January 16th, 2025. I'm your host, Jeff Marlow, joined tonight by my co-host, Kathy Amos. And tonight we'll be discussing your Indiana Hoosiers Big Ten loss to Illinois, 68-54 at Assembly Hall. This brings their record to 12-5 overall and 4-2 in the Big Ten. But as usual, we'll start our show with our banner moment, our Hoosier Proud banner moment. And Kathy, this was brought to us by our good friend Ari earlier in the day that was released nationally. But Maya Mikuleski and Nevaeh Caffey were both nominated, incoming recruits, both nominated for the McDonald's All-American game. So congrats to those two incoming recruits. And Mikuleski is the highest ranked recruit in the Terry Morin era. She's got a borderline 4 or 5 star here. So congratulations to Caffey and Mikuleski, and we will go from there and hopefully see them doing good things next year. Our banner moment is brought to you by Home Field Apparel, presenting sponsor of the Back Home Network, which includes the Assembly Call, Crimson Cast, X's and Joe's, and now the Dribble Drive. Home Field is constantly releasing new schools or updating their products for schools in their existing line. You are bound to find good stuff for you or anyone in your life that just loves great collegiate gear. Not only do you get quality apparel, but you're supporting an Indiana-based business that has its roots in the Kelly School of Business. Go to homefieldapparel.com and use our promo code HOME23, that's HOME23, to get 15% off your entire first order. That's promo code HOME23, HOME23, for 15% off. Once again, the website is homefieldapparel.com. Wear one for the team. And we're going to throw it over to my co-host here, Kathy, for the Amos angle.
Yeah. Hey, thanks, Jeff. Good night and good evening or good morning, good afternoon, whatever time you may be listening to all of our listeners out there. Yeah. So a bit of a letdown today from after, how we played, I thought, on Sunday in Iowa City. I was not expecting, I was expecting this to be a little closer. I'm not surprised necessarily that we lost. We talked about that on our preview. That, even without Makira Cook, Illinois was still making some waves, and they've really readjusted to not having Makira Cook on the floor, and they have still a lot of veteran players. So this was definitely not a team to be overlooked. And it just seemed to me, Jeff, that we didn't come out with quite the energy. So I don't know if again, it seemed like the same way, right? We had UCLA where we played with great energy, went up to Northwestern. We squeaked out the win up there, but it just seemed like we were kind of let down after that. And it seemed not quite as bad as the Northwestern game. Otherwise, it could have been a bit worse than it just didn't feel like we were playing with the energy that we saw on Sunday or the UCLA game. And I think that's just something maybe we're just going to have to get used to the rest of the year as we go away here, that we're just going to continue to see these inconsistencies in play from our team. So the one thing I do have to say, even if they were just maybe a step slower than we needed them to be, tonight, they never quit playing. They never quit playing with hustle, and they didn't quit playing with heart. They just were maybe a step slow, and maybe as we get into it, maybe a little lackadaisical at times with the ball. So those are kind of my quick thoughts on the game.
Yeah, and we can kind of jump into some of the pivotal plays. And Kathy, I'm just going to kind of give you my overall thoughts of the first half. I just felt like I agree with you, and I thought the studio crew on Peacock really hit this pretty well. Megan McCown, and even Nicole. And by the way, Nicole Cardano-Hillary, for those of you who weren't able to watch the game, did the color tonight on the Peacock broadcast. Even called it out in the first half that they weren't playing with energy. They weren't moving. There was a lot of stagnation on the offensive end. And we just, and from what we'd seen, or at least I had listened to the game on Sunday with Iowa, it just was night and day from what we saw there in terms of the energy and the pace that they played with. And I don't know what we can chalk it up to. I know we're going to talk about some of this a little bit later, maybe in the second half, about some of the lineups a little bit. But I just totally agree with you. There was no energy. And once you got down by 15 against a decent Illinois team, it was going to be a tough hole to dig out of.
Yeah, absolutely. And it didn't help. We weren't shooting very well. Definitely in the first half, we only shot 35% field goals in the first half. And I think they recognized that in the halftime, because then I felt like, at least in the second half, we kind of went away from what we really seen our offensive identity be, which was really like moving the ball and trying to get open shots, especially 3-pointers. We didn't take a whole lot. Instead, we were really driving the ball. And it looked to me that we made that adjustment at halftime to start driving more and be more aggressive. And I think when we get into the numbers, that really showed up in a couple of places that I'm sure we'll talk about in that segment. But in this one, yeah, it just, at first I thought it was going to be great, right? We had Yarden come out with that three. Lexi hit a 3 in the first half. Chloe Moore McNeil seemed to be aggressive, but and overall with Chloe tonight, she was aggressive at time in offense. And then other times she kind of seemed to sit back and took what Illinois gave them. But they often were standing around on offense and not necessarily pushing it. And we saw that, especially, I thought, actually in the second half, where we had a shot clock violation. I think we might have had one in the first one too, now that I think about it. But just like even late into the shot clock, we weren't moving the ball real good, and then all of a sudden we'd be scrambling to try to get a shot off before the clock expired. So just overall, it just didn't seem to be, quite the aggressive. Right? And hats off to Illinois too, by the way. I thought they came out from the very tip to the very last shot, or to the buzzer went off rather. I thought they played with a lot of really good energy from the Illinois side, and they played really well together too. A lot of, they ended up with 18 assists on their 27 field goals made. So hats off to Illinois as well. I thought that their game plan coming in was really well put together and executed.
Yeah. Yeah. And in the first half, especially, it was what we were afraid of on Sunday when we talked about this game, that Illinois has been a team, even without Micaiah Cook, this is a team that has given Indiana fits with dribble penetration. And it showed up again tonight. And they don't shoot a lot of threes. They only shot 10 threes the whole game. I mean, they are almost the opposite of what is supposed to be the modern game, even in the women's game. But they just, you look at their numbers in the first half, they shot 8, they were just over 50% in the first half. And most of that was because they were getting shots in the lane or at least on drives that were opening up shots, maybe mid-range jump shots. But it was just a lot of the same things that we saw with that. And then also, one of their best players had a good game. Kendall Bostic played like the all league type player she could be, or could be at the end of the year. She finished with 21 and 8. Below her rebound average, but above her scoring average. So we didn't get that, and we'll talk a little bit about that a little bit later. But we didn't get some efforts, some production efforts. We didn't get some production efforts that we normally get from some people. And again, I agree with you. I kind of reiterate. At least they don't quit, but I can't say you were giving them an A effort in the first half. You'd be struggling to give them a C effort in the first half.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. We came out in the second half too, and boy, we ended up, I'm going to just go ahead and jump to that fourth quarter. We had Lexi. I thought Lexi had a pretty decent game, and she had a really nice drive, a fake, and then it ended up making that little fadeaway shot to make it 49-45. And that was just about it. We just couldn't seem to get any closer than that. And then unfortunately, their freshman Wallace went down. She stole the ball, went down for a layup for 2, then missed a shot. Then Indiana missed a shot. And then she went back and hit a 3, and that took that lead back up to 10. And that was probably, in my opinion, the kind of the proverbial, nail in the coffin, I think, for us in this game. We just never seemed to be able to get going completely on team defense. I think there were some individual moments on defense too, Jeff. I'd be interested to hear what your thoughts are on that. But team defense, we just, again, seemed to step slow on our rotations. We weren't always necessarily communicating, and that allowed, Kendall Bostic to get those 21 points in particular. So I thought there were some good individual moments on defense, and we held them to under their season average, right? So it wasn't necessarily the whole game. We just never seemed to be able to string enough of those stops together to allow us to go down and get some offense going.
Well, even in the second half, they played a little better energy coming out of the locker room, but they were still down. I think it was 45-32 coming out of the third quarter media timeout. And that was it was 43-32. And then Illinois hit 2 free throws right after that timeout. So it was 13. And that's when they went on their run. They then went on what that becomes about a 13-4 run that got them back into that point. But you're using a lot of energy up to make that run.
That's right.
And then, like you said, for the fourth quarter, you're getting into that fourth quarter where a couple baskets can really swing the momentum back the other way. Overall, I didn't think the defense was all bad in terms of the team because, like I said, they only gave up 68. But we just still at times have a struggle with the dribble penetration. There were a couple plays there tonight when they were trying to make that move to get it tighter and to get over the hump, that there was one play, and I can't remember who scored, but it might have been Bostic, but they had a breakdown, and I know on TV they kind of blamed it on Stripling, but I'm not sure it was all on Stripling, but she probably was involved, and that basket was like, those are the kinds of things you can't have happen when you're trying to make a run with that. So, but I don't have any really more pivotal plays. To me, it was almost, like I said, for me, the pivotal plays tonight were just the lack of energy in the first half, especially.
Yeah, the main pivotal ones came for, like I mentioned, in the fourth quarter with Lexi when she made it the 4-point, and then when Wallace, their freshman player, came down and had those 2 back-to-back plays for 5 points to put them up 10. Those to me were pretty were pivotal. One in our direction, we just again couldn't keep that momentum to maintain or get back any closer than those 4 points.
Yep. So we'll dive into the numbers here. And Kathy, I'll let you go first. Let's talk team here first, because obviously we'll talk some individuals with the awards. Excuse me.
We were so tight, by the way. So, after a really rough first half shooting for us, we shot 35% field goal percentage. We ended up at 46% on the night. So, the second half, especially that third quarter, the second half, we ended up shooting 60%, but I think the third quarter was even better than that. If I can, 73. Thank you. Sometimes these stats don't work. It was still showing 60. So that's one that kind of stuck out to me. So and again, like I mentioned earlier, I don't think it was necessarily because we were starting to make our jumpers, because we definitely didn't hit many more threes. We did hit a few more than we did in the first half, but we still ended up 5 of 12 there, which is fine, but not at our usual clip. I think it was more because we were being a lot more aggressive and trying to get the ball to the basket by driving on them. So that was something I really noticed in the second half.
But I'll go along with that, Kathy. It was not IU basketball to a big chunk of it, because we only had 7 assists on 21 made baskets tonight, which is way below what this team is doing when it's playing well. We've talked about this several times, that when this team is playing well, the assist numbers are 75-80% of their made baskets. And we weren't close to that tonight. And it wasn't like they were offensive putbacks, because we only had 3 offensive rebounds. So it wasn't like we were rebounding missed shots and putting them in, so we weren't getting assists. We weren't moving the ball. We weren't getting the ball to people in open spots, and then people weren't knocking them down either. But there was not, and to me, that goes back to the energy, the pace, whatever term you want to give it. That's what was lacking tonight, and it really shows up in the assist number.
Yeah, and then you take that and you compound it by doubling your assist numbers up with turnovers. So, you're 1 to 2 in your assist to turnover ratio. We ended up with 14 turnovers, and sometimes you can kind of weather that many turnovers, but it was just compounded by the fact that Illinois then turned those into 14 points off of turnovers. And, there you go. That's the margin they ended up winning by. So you cut down on some of those turnovers and turn those into baskets. You're taking away obviously their opportunities. When you turn the ball over, you're taking away opportunities for you to score, and you're giving Illinois 14 points off of those turnovers. It's just, a recipe for disaster. And then on top of it, our defense just didn't turn Illinois over at all, hardly. We only turned them over 6 times for 3 points on our side of it. So, the 7 assists was definitely a number I wanted to mention as well, if you didn't get to it. So, but 7 assists to 14 turnovers is not a recipe for winning basketball games.
No. And I'll go. Now, here's a stat that may surprise you. And again, this is one of those where stats sometimes don't tell the whole story. We lost by 14, but we outscored them in the paint 30-24.
Yeah, that was surprising when I looked at it. And the same thing at halftime already. We were already up in points in the paint. So that was surprising to me to see that.
And then the other thing I'll point out here, again, for to win a game like tonight, and I think even if we played well, Illinois shot 47% for the game. That can't happen in your gym. If you want to win, even if we had not turned it over 14 times, even if we'd shot a little better, this was going to be a tight game. If we're allowing them to shoot 47%, we had to be able to hold them down around 42, 43, maybe 41% for the game, and that didn't happen.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think from a team perspective, those are really the big numbers that jump out to me.
Go with the individuals.
Okay. So yeah, I think that the glaring one here for me is Yarden. Yarden ended up with only 3 points. That was the very first shot of the game. She hit her first 3-pointer, 1 of 2. She went 1 of 3 for the night. But the surprising part for me with that is that she ended up only playing 20 minutes. So in the back of my head, I'm wondering at this point if she re-injured or tweaked her knee a little bit somewhere in the beginning of that third quarter, because she did come out and start the second half. She only played a couple of minutes, and then after that, she never came back in. Now, to be on the same side of that, Lily Meister really played as well in the second half. She only played 11 minutes. The bulk of those were in the first half. And so it could be too that Coach Morin and the coaching staff just didn't like what they were getting from those two. But we do know that Yarden's had that knee injury a couple of games ago. And I guess in my head, I find it really hard to believe that they kept Yarden on the bench that entire second half for the most part, if she wasn't hurt.
Right.
Lily, I think the reason she probably didn't come out, it just wasn't a great matchup for her tonight with Bostic tonight. And I thought Striplin was doing a much better job on her defensively. So I can understand why Lily didn't play much in the second half, but the only thing I can attribute Yarden is maybe the retweaking of that knee. But those were the two things that kind of stuck out for me from some individuals.
Yeah, and I'll go along here. I think it is becoming a little bit of an issue for me is the lack of the bench. And I know we got 11 points off the bench, and Illinois only got 13. So if you look at it from a production standpoint, it wasn't a big discrepancy. But no Hannah tonight. Jules played 2 minutes. Lexi got 23, so she was really the only person, and Striplin played 29. So as you mentioned, those others, the other two, Yarden and Lily, didn't play a ton. I liked it earlier in the year when we were playing 8-9 people and getting them several minutes, and we're getting away from that again. And I know it's hard. I've been there. I know I've been a high school coach. I've been a college coach, but sometimes you start getting a little bit like, do I trust? But I think the only way you learn to trust people is it's kind of that catch-22. You can't. How can you prove to be trustworthy if your coaches don't trust you on the floor? And so that's, and I would like to see, I'd still like to see Jules get more than 2 minutes. I'm not sure why Jules is all of a sudden in the per se doghouse.
That's right. Yeah, she was the one that stuck out to me too, Jeff, from the bench side of things. She didn't play at all in the first half. And then I'd like to mention she only played a couple, and it's been like that here the last few games, although it has been flipped candidly where she's been playing in the first half and not in the second. And I'm not understanding that, because when Sydney was out hurt, she came in and started and was playing, at least 20 minutes, if not longer. And I thought she was doing a nice job. And I know she's had moments where she's missed defensive assignments or things of that nature. But I just, when you only play 2 minutes, you're never going to get in the flow of the game. So it's hard for me to put those kind of expectations on someone, play them only 2 minutes and be like, well, you missed one defensive assignment in your 2 minutes of play, so now I'm going to go ahead and sit you again. And I don't know that's the reasoning. That's just how it kind of looks to me from my seat. Again, I've never coached at all, unless you count when I coached a 5th grade basketball team. So I can't really say if that's why they're sitting her, but I don't understand it.
I think Jules makes some mistakes, don't get me wrong, but she brings energy. And that's what I think sometimes this team needs a lot of, is somebody who's going to come off the bench or start with some high level energy. And there are times with this team, tonight was one of them, where we didn't see that. And it boggles my mind on a home game. And again, you kind of made this comment the other day. It makes you wonder if they were caught looking ahead, that they know they have USC coming in on Sunday, nationally televised game, big time, top 5 opponent. and they saw Illinois and kind of like, oh, okay, it's Illinois, but that shouldn't be the case with this team. This team is not that team. They've played well. Don't get us wrong. We've made some. We've talked about how well they've played really since the first couple of games of the season, and tonight was a tough loss. Not saying it wasn't, but this team has come a long way from where they were. But tonight was one of those games where they look like they did earlier in the year, where they didn't play with energy, didn't play with pace, and it caught them because they couldn't, overcome the other things that then were going against them. If you don't have anything else about individuals, why don't we jump into the game ball here, and that way we can talk about some more individuals from that standpoint.
Yeah, for sure.
And before Kathy gets going, I'm going to let her go first. The current game ball, if you're watching on the YouTube feed, is on the scroll coming across. But those of you who are listening on the podcast later and not watching the live version, Shea Chesky and Yarden Garzon lead the way with 4 game balls each. Lily Meister has 3. Sydney Parrish and Caroline Striplin 2 each, and Chloe Moore McNeil with 1. So, Kathy, since I'm doing the hosting duties and you're kind of producing that, I'm going to let you go first.
Yeah, this is a tough one, Jeff. Like you had 3 players with that led the team in scoring. You had Shea Chesky, Chloe Moore McNeil, and Sydney Parrish all had 13 points. Chloe ended up playing 40 minutes, 36 for Shea, 37 for Sydney. Sydney led the team in rebounds at 7. Chloe Moore McNeil was not far behind with 5. So then I kind of go to the turnover column. Chloe had 3 there, and Shea had 2, and Sydney had 1. So if you looked strictly at their stat line, I thought they were all about even. And this has been a really hard one for me to kind of come up with. But where I'm going to end up going is with Chloe Moore McNeil. And the reason I ended up going with her is I thought a couple of reasons. One, on offense, I thought she was actually, had moments where she was trying to be aggressive. Now, again, the whole team was in the second half in particular driving the ball, but I thought she really was from the beginning. I would like to see that again a little more consistently from her, but why I landed on her was I thought her defense in the first half, she held Genesis Bryant down to, I think 5 points, if I remember correctly. And then they switched her, yeah, that's right. And then they switched her to Mackenzie, who had put up 13 in the first half, and Chloe held her to 2 points in the second half. And so that's why I ended up landing on Chloe, because I thought defensively, she definitely led the team on that end of the court.
Well, and the one thing I was going to say, if these 3 didn't do anything, this would have been a long night because nobody else did much, as far as putting the ball in the hoop. And so I was kind of with you. I was really leaning toward either Chloe or Sid here, mainly because of the rebounding numbers and the fact that Shea was also in here, and they all 3 played a ton of minutes, and I think what kind of put me over the top for me with Chloe, I'm going to agree with you about Chloe, is Chloe did that, the 13 points, the 5 rebounds, the 2 assists, in 40 minutes. And she didn't come off the floor tonight. And so I thought that's a pretty good recognition that she was putting some, putting some effort, or at least she was being aggressive at times. And again, we talked about this. I've been really hard on her about being aggressive. She at least got 13 shots up tonight. She had double the number. Well, I'll take it back. She had more shots than anybody else. And Sid had 9. So Chloe was the only one in the team that had double figure shots tonight.
Yep, absolutely.
So we're going to give Chloe the game ball here, and that's going to jump her up to her 2nd game ball of the year. And so, Chloe, congrats. Then we'll move on to the Grace Berger Hardest Worker of the Game Award. And again, we're going to let Kathy go first.
Yep. So for me, I ended up landing here on Sydney Parrish. Again, her 13 points were great, but I thought all over, she was really hustling tonight. Like you mentioned already, she led the team in rebounds with 7. And, with the 14 turnovers, she only had 1 for us as a team. She played 37 minutes, and we know she's still got that knee injury with the big brace on there as well. She didn't foul either, which we've seen her be prone to do within her career. And so I thought she played within herself. Her shots weren't really going down in terms of 3-pointers. She was only 1 for 4, but she made her free throws 4 of 6 and 4 of 9 from the field outside of those 3 missed 3-pointers. So for me, I thought she really hustled out there, and I liked what I saw from Sydney.
Yeah, and I'm going to agree with you. I was going to go with Sydney here, mainly because of the 7 rebounds and also the fact that she got to the line. She was, you could see the aggressiveness a little bit from Sid because she got to the line 6 times on a night when the team only shot 11. So Sydney shot over half the free throws for us. tonight. So, and I forgot to mention this as we started this segment, Yarn Garzon and Chloe Moore McNeil have 4 hardest workers coming in tonight. Sydney Parrish now will move up to 3. This is her 3rd hardest worker of the game award for the year. And then Lily Meister with 2, and then Caroline Striplin, Shay Chesky, Jules Lamondola, and Hannah Sandvik all have 1. So those are our game ball tonight goes to Chloe Moore McNeil, and our hardest worker of the game, the Grace Berger hardest worker, goes to Sydney Parrish. We're going to throw it over to Kathy. I don't think the numbers watch move much tonight, so especially for Yarden, but we'll give you over to you to quickly update the numbers watch.
Yeah, I think I'll just stick to Chloe on how we're watching her get closer to 1,000 points. Yeah, we won't mention Yarden's because I don't know if that's fair without her having played a full game. So anyway, Chloe had 13 points in here. So she is now 11 points away from 1,000 points. So even though average-wise, it might take her 2, if she plays like she did the last couple of games, she is going to get that hopefully on Sunday against USC. So that'll be fun to keep an eye on that in that game. Again, Yarden only had 3 points, so she now needs 36 points in order to get to that 1,000 mark. So that's where we're at with our numbers
as they keep moving up the list. So, and then Kathy said that, we have another game coming up on Sunday. We mentioned it earlier. USC, the number 4 ranked team in the country, will be coming in on Sunday. That game is a noon Eastern time, 11 a.m. Central time start. That game will be on NBC. And right now they've only played once. USC leads the all-time series 1-0 all the way back in 1986, a 99-53 USC win out in Los Angeles. The Trojans are coached by Lindsay Gottlieb. She's in her 4th season at USC, where she's 62-32. But she's now in her 15th season overall. She spent 8 seasons at Cal and 3 seasons at UC Santa Barbara. So she spent a lot of time in the Golden State with their coaching career. But at USC, they've gone to the NCAA the last couple of years. They went to the Elite 8 last year, losing to UConn. They won the Pac-12 tournament last year, I believe it was. And at least they have one Pac-12 tournament title with her as the head coach. So also played at Brown. So Lindsay Gottlieb has built a really good program in a very short period of time at USC. And I wanted to mention she's also 294 and 160 in her career, which is a 648 winning percentage. And Kathy's going to take and let you know about some of the stars. And I think you've probably heard of a few of them.
Yes. So of course, I think at this point, if anyone's listening to our podcast, that means they have watched some women's college basketball in their life and they have heard of Juju Watkins. So Juju Watkins is averaging 25.5 points per game. That leads the Big Ten. She is shooting at a clip of 46.5% field goal, which is good for 5th in the Big Ten. She also has 6.6 rebounds per game, 3.9 assists and 1.9 blocks per game. That 1.9 blocks is also 4th in the Big Ten. And then Kiki Irifin is also in the team. She is averaging close to a double-double. She's got 18.6 points per game. So that's 4th in the Big Ten. 52.2% field goal percentage, and then 8.6 rebounds per game. To go along with their 2 big stars there, you have Raya Marshall. She is averaging 7.8 per game, 8.8 rebounds, and then 2.2 blocks per game, which is good for 2nd. So that might be something to keep an eye on when you have 2 people in your top 4 in the Big Ten in scoring, and then 2 of your players in the top 4 in blocks as well. So watch them on both sides. They did lose Kennedy Smith earlier this year. She had played 10 games. She is now out for the season. At the time she went out in those 10 games, she had averaged 9.5 points per game.
And then if we look at some stats here, as we mentioned, USC 16-1 overall, 6-0 in the league. They had a game with Northwestern that was postponed this week. It was supposed to be out in Los Angeles. The wildfires that led to that game being postponed. I have not seen anything about being made up, but I'm sure it will be when they can find a mutual date that the league office and stuff can agree on. But as Kathy mentioned, they've got big time scores. They're averaging 84.7 points a game. It's 10th in the country, 2nd in the Big Ten. They only give up 54.5 a game, which is 11th in the country, 3rd in the Big Ten. They're 22nd in tempo. So they like to play with a really fast pace. They shoot 46.5% from the field, 28th in the country. 51.6 is their effective field goal percentage, which is 42nd. They don't shoot the three great. They'll shoot some. They're not afraid to shoot it, but it's not a high percentage. It's 31.9, which is 149th in the country. But again, this is a team that's going to rebound. Kiki Irfin was a Stanford recruit. She played a couple years up there, transferred out to USC this year. And also Juju obviously boards well. They are a plus 10.7 in rebound margin. They're a very good rebounding team for an IU team that has not rebounded well. And then they are plus 5.9 in turnover margin. And so turnovers will be a huge factor in this game coming up on Sunday. Kathy, before I talk a little bit about what's going on around the Big Ten, you got anything you want to add in about the team stats here?
No, nothing specifically about the team stats. I think this is going to be like a broken record of what we said against before the UCLA game. They are going to have to play a near perfect game to be able to hang in, I think, with USC here. USC is not ranked where they're at for nothing, haven't lost at all in the conference yet. So, they're definitely going to have to play better than they did obviously today or against Northwestern. They're going to have to bring that same energy and attention to detail that they did against UCLA. And I know we didn't end up on top against UCLA, but I thought they played really well. So they're going to have to channel that if they want to have a chance to kind of hang with USC here on Sunday.
Yeah, and I would totally agree. And again, you can't let Juju go. Juju cannot get 35. Kiki cannot get 30. You have got to find a way to keep them at or below, slightly below their scoring averages and make the others beat you. But to me, the big key is going to be rebounding and it's going to be turnovers. I hate to sound cliche about it, but this is a team, Indiana team, that has not always rebounded well, and it has struggled at times to take care of the ball. And against a team that likes to turn you over with USC here. Talking about around the Big Ten, we had a big matchup on Tuesday, top 25 matchup. Maryland at home took on Minnesota, came away with a 99-92 victory over Minnesota. And
that was in regulation. It was not even in overtime. So we watched a little bit of that game, and it was a frantic pace, needless to say. But I think Maryland just had too much firepower for Minnesota in that game. But hats off again to Minnesota, man. They hung right in there with them for most of that game. But it was kind of a little bit of fun watch. I watched a bit of the second half.
And then also tonight, this game just ended in Iowa City. Another loss for the Hawkeyes. Nebraska goes on the road into Iowa City with an 87-84 win in overtime. And what makes this interesting is I was watching the broadcast, kind of, if you've been watching on the YouTube, kind of see me sneaking a peek here. Iowa was up 11 with 6 minutes to go in the fourth quarter.
Jeez.
6 minutes to go in the fourth quarter.
Fourth loss now, right? In a row?
Yeah, it's their fourth straight loss in the league. But it was 80, like I said, and they were just slightly above 50% from the line tonight. So they lose 87-84. Good win for Nebraska. And again, give Nebraska credit. They've kind of righted the ship after they lost their sophomore. And I can't think of her name now. I want to say Potts, but that doesn't sound right.
Natalie Potts?
Is it Potts that got hurt?
I think Natalie so. Potts?
Okay.
I think so. I'm sure if Ari's listening, he'll fact check for us.
Yeah, but I think Potts, I think got hurt.
Yeah, that moved Nebraska up to tied for 5th with Minnesota and Michigan State and us now, all with 4 and 2. So, we have 3 undefeated teams with UCLA, USC, Ohio State, Maryland right behind them at 6 and 1. Then you have a bunch of teams with 4 and 2, and then you have Oregon at 4 and 3, and then it's just a jumbled mess. Interesting. I didn't expect to be seeing this, but Iowa is near the bottom. What is that? 1, 2, 3. They are 12th is not where I would have ever thought to see Iowa. Again, I understand they're kind of reeling, but they were playing some pretty good basketball at the beginning of the year. And boy, they hit the Big Ten and they've kind of hit a skid here.
Yeah, the other problem you have in the league right now, as we talked about this the other day, the teams at the bottom are just not playing well either. And so that's one of those. And then on Sunday coming up, besides the IU game, number 22 Michigan State will travel to Champaign to take on Illinois. So again, Illinois with a chance to get another big win at home after beating Iowa, beating Indiana, now going back home to face Michigan State. So with that, going into tonight, strength of schedule wise, USC has the best strength of schedule in the country. They're first, followed by Iowa, Purdue has the 5th strongest schedule at this point. I'm trying to figure it out because I can't remember them playing necessarily a lot of high quality opponents. Oregon, Michigan, UCLA,
schedule.
Yeah, and Indiana, and that's true too.
With.
And Indiana coming in at 10th coming into tonight. So,
I put those together, Jeff. And what was it? What do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of the top 10 strength of schedules are all Big Ten players, Big Ten schools. So, if people don't believe that the Big Ten is the toughest schedule, and we're still fairly early into the conference schedule, and those numbers are really speak, I think, towards the strength of the Big Ten in general. So, USC first, Iowa 4th, 5th, 6th, and Michigan 8th, UCLA 9th, and Indiana at 10th. So, it's not going to get any easier. Is kind of my point.
And actually, that win by Nebraska jumps them up to 5-2 in the league.
Okay. Great. So ESPN app hadn't updated yet. Thank you.
Yeah. So that jumps them up. So, but like you said, we were looking at it a little bit the other day. Northwestern, Purdue, Penn State, Rutgers, none of them have a win still, as of this moment, have a win in the league. So with that. So Kathy, I'll throw it over to you. Get your final thoughts on the evening.
Yeah, well, hopefully, again, this just continues to reemphasize to our team that they have to maintain focus and high energy with every game. They can't look ahead. They have to make sure, this one kind of hurt being at home, especially you always want to serve at home. What helps take a little bit of the sting away was that win on the road against Iowa earlier this week. So at least, record wise, we're about where we thought we would be, not necessarily the games that we thought we'd win. I thought we'd win this and lose Iowa. So again, hopefully it just kind of reiterates to our players that they have to continue to stay focused with every game, regardless of who the opponent is. So, I expected to see a different team again on Sunday come out, and I'll be excited to watch it.
And we'll be interested to see what happens with Yarden. And was she hurt? Did they take her out because they felt like she wasn't playing well and was maybe tweaked an injury, and they thought, let's be precautionary tonight? It would be interesting to see what Yarden is available or how much she possibly plays or how effective she is on Sunday. My thoughts tonight is this, again, it's a tough loss. I'm not going to deny that. But you got to shake this one off. You got to forget about it and go and be ready to come back on Sunday because you're getting an even better opponent coming in on Sunday in USC. So those are kind of my final thoughts. You got to be able to shake it off.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, we'll be back on Sunday. The game starts at noon Eastern, 11 a.m. Central. So we'll be back on Sunday right after the game to have our post-game show for the USC game. That will be after the game, approximately 2 p.m. Central, 1 p.m. 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central. So that'll be our next podcast will be Sunday after the USC game. If you want us to just do the show live and be a part of the live chat, make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/@BackHomeNetwork. That's the @ symbol, youtube.com/@BackHomeNetwork. You can be a part of our private community as well. Find out more at assemblycall.substack.com. Special thanks to John Ringer of rigdesign.com for designing our logos. Also, a big thank you to Bob Thompson for the music you heard throughout the broadcast. Big thank you to Kathy for being here with me again tonight. Thank you all for listening. We'll be back to talk about IU hoops again with you on Sunday. Until then, keep your elbow in, your eyes on the rim, and let's go Hoosiers.
All right. Good job. Thanks everyone for being here, and if you're here live or listening after the fact, appreciate you being here on a Thursday or whenever. So,
or whenever.
Whenever you're listening, thanks for being there.
All right. Hey, we're going to get out of here and talk to you guys on Sunday.
All right. Good night, everyone.